So we're going to talk about a couple things in this video. For all the doubters, that Shanann had her spinal surgery, and go over the blood alcohol level thing real quick. I found a few articles. I just wanted to go over a few points, and then also there's this weird thing that I found when they're doing their warrant search. It might just be an effect from the lights, the flashlights, but it just looks really odd. So I want to get your guys' opinion on it. Alrighty, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So first of all, I want to show you the bill from Shanann's neurosurgeon, because there has been people that have been claiming that she never really had her spinal surgery and that she just made it up. And because on the autopsy, number one, they said that there's no mention of a surgical site, but there is, which I'm going to show you. And then number two, because they didn't mention her scar on her neck. But we all know that the scar is there. We've seen it on videos, we've seen it on pictures, so you can't really deny that. Obviously, they just missed it. They just overlooked her scar, probably because she had bruising on her neck from the manual strangulation, so they missed the scar. They forgot to, either they missed it or they just forgot to write it down. But you can't argue that it wasn't there because we all saw it. And some people are actually going as far as saying that she actually really cut herself on her neck to give her that scar, which is ridiculous. I think it's just so silly to even think that. But like I was saying, one of the reasons they think that is because there was no mention of a scar on her neck. Well, don't you see the problem in that? The fact that you're saying that one of your arguments for you to believe that she didn't have the surgery and made it up, and even actually went as far as cutting herself to pretend she had the surgery, is because they didn't mention the scar on her neck. Well, if she cut herself to pretend, then she would still have the scar on her neck. Obviously, they just missed the scar or forgot to put it on there, because we know the scar was there. And we know that she had the surgery because right here it talks about the surgical site. So here's the part in the discovery, in the autopsy, in Shanann's autopsy section. It says spine. The spine has normal configuration. There is faintly visible hardware involving the anterior aspect of the cervical spine at the level of C6. There is no soft tissue hemorrhage or other abnormalities associated with this prior surgical site. Right there. And then you see the neurosurgeon bill. It'd be a neurosurgeon that would perform a surgery like this. So we see it's a bill for Shanann. So that just adds on top of the proof that she had her surgery. And then just to go over the blood alcohol level real quick again, because there's still people thinking that she drank. So we know her blood alcohol concentration was 0.128. I just want to point out the part where it says ethanol can also be a product of decomposition or degradation of biological samples. So remember, it's 0.128. So I looked up some information about it, and I found a bunch of articles, but I just picked three of them to share a couple things with you. This one I had actually shared in one of my previous videos. Okay, so it says blood alcohol scores after death can be false positive up to 0.20. In handling wrongful death and life insurance claims for clients, I learned years ago that blood alcohol tests after a person dies may not be reliable. Due to postmortem fermentation, when a body is not kept cool after death, there can be a false positive. Blood alcohol reports up to 0.20 grams percent to 2.5 times the legal limit of 0.08 for drivers and boaters in Georgia. Years ago, I was hired by the widow of a retired Army officer who drowned on a fishing trip. A life insurance policy excluded coverage if the insured was intoxicated at the time of death. An autopsy by the state medical examiner reported blood alcohol of 0.20 grams percent. But both the widow and her late husband's fishing partner swore he had nothing to drink. At first, we thought the county coroner, on whose property the drowning occurred, might have messed with blood samples. When I contacted an independent pathologist, I learned that fermentation could have produced the blood alcohol score. The body had been retrieved from a lake in South Georgia on a hot August day, laid out in the sun for a while, and then was transported by hearse in uncertain temperature conditions on an hours-long drive to the state medical examiner's office in Atlanta. That was enough for fermentation to occur. With that knowledge, we won. Why is that? So, sound familiar? Shanann's body laid out in the sun for 3 days. 3 hot August summer days. And in this case that I'm reading about, they're talking about maybe a few hours that it laid out. And on the trip, having uncertain temperature, Shanann had 3 days of heating up, cooling down at night, heating up, cooling down at night. As discussed in a recent article by forensic scientist Jim Wigmore, over half of a postmortem blood is not sterile and contains bacteria, yeast, or fungi. In addition, postmortem blood sugar, glucose, concentration can be 7 to 10 times greater than blood before death. Fermentation is the formation of alcohol from sugar. Yeasts can convert 100 milligrams of glucose into approximately 40 to 50 milligrams of alcohol. Bacteria and fungi generally can convert 100 milligrams of sugar into 10 to 20 milligrams of alcohol. During fermentation, other volatile compounds such as acetaldehyde and N-propanol are produced and may assist in the determination of elevated blood alcohol scores due to fermentation or putrefaction. It has been well established for many years that blood alcohol levels at autopsy are valid up to 48 hours after death when solid protocols are observed in the collection and storage of samples. Alcohol levels in samples of blood taken from the intact heart are as significant as levels of blood from the femoral veins. False blood alcohol levels greater than 0.200% can be generated in autopsy blood samples which are not correctly stored. High blood alcohol levels may develop during putrefaction, and levels up to 0.200% do not necessarily indicate that alcohol was imbibed before death. And imbibed means to consume by drinking. So basically, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody was drinking alcohol to have 0.200% blood alcohol level after death. And remember, Shanann's was 0.18. Significant false high blood alcohol levels do not develop during incineration in absence of putrefaction. Here's another one, blood fermentation. The Cara blood sample once taken from the subject should be investigated. It is a common practice to let the blood specimen sit for days before analyzing it. Due to delay in getting it to the laboratory, to a crowded schedule in the laboratory, or to simple neglect. But blood is an organic material and will decompose because of enzymes and bacterial action. One of the results of this decomposition is that alcohol is created in the blood. In a sample originally containing no alcohol, decomposition can cause a reading of 0.25% or even higher. And Shanann's was 0.128. So this is even higher than hers, depending on the stage of decay. Usually the specimen will be refrigerated to prevent this. So not only could it have happened after they took the blood from her, but also before they took the blood from her, there was some decomposition, being out in that heat for sure. However, refrigeration will only slow down the decomposition process, not prevent it. To stop this decaying of the blood and the resultant formation of alcohol, a preservative such as sodium fluoride solution should be added. Failure to do this, and it is not at all uncommon, should provide defense counsel with sufficient material at least to discredit the test results, if not prevent their admission into evidence. Most blood alcohol kits used to collect blood samples for alcohol testing use tubes containing 20 milligrams of sodium fluoride to preserve the blood sample. The noted Swedish expert on blood alcohol analysis, however, claims that this is an insufficient amount to prevent fermentation. At least 100 milligrams should be used. Salting out effect of sodium fluoride and its influence on the analysis of ethanol by headspace gas chromatography. Let's see. Dr. Jones also found that using sodium fluoride to preserve a blood sample actually increased the amount of alcohol in the sample when gas chromatography was used to analyze it. According to his research, even 10 milligrams of sodium fluoride increased the concentration of ethanol in the equilibrated headspace by 8.9% when compared with hyperinized blood treated with an anticoagulant. This was due to a salting out effect from the sodium fluoride. Although many scientists believe that a preservative consisting of 1% of the sample is sufficient to stop the growth of microorganisms, many others feel that a 2% preservative such as sodium fluoride is required. Clearly, the risk of fermentation will vary according to the amount of preservative used. However, it will also be directly affected by the length of time the sample is stored and by the temperature at which it was stored. Sodium fluoride of 1% or less concentration is stable for only about 2 days. The collection and handling of the blood alcohol specimen and fluctuations from a storage temperature of 25 degrees centigrade will increase fermentation and production of alcohol. So I'm not going to read the rest of it, but it's basically saying that after they take the blood, there's a chance that it will basically give you a higher reading of ethanol than really it's in your blood because of the sodium fluoride, because they don't use enough sodium fluoride to stop the fermentation. And then they're also finding that sodium fluoride mixed with the chromatography is creating an increase of ethanol. So this, on top of her decomposing out in the sun for 3 days before they found her body. So that right there could have been enough to create the increase in ethanol. But then on top of that, after they took her blood, it could also be increased because of this procedure and the lack of control in this happening even after they take the blood out. So, and then here's one more article I just wanted to read. This last part where it says, bacterial synthesis. When somebody dies, the body produces ethanol as a product of decomposition. The production of ethanol within the body begins shortly after death. As the body begins to decay, bacteria grow. The bacteria produce ethanol by converting it from sugars such as glucose. The ethanol levels rise as the body decomposes, and the bacteria continue to reproduce, with concentrations approaching 1,500 milligrams per liter mere days after death. Distribution. Alcohol distributes itself through the body unevenly after death. The difference in water content among various body fluids and tissues causes alcohol to appear in higher or lower levels. Blood plasma, for example, has higher water content than whole blood, so it may show a 10% to 15% higher alcohol level. The gel-like substance inside the eye, known as the vitreous humor, on the other hand, seems to collect little or no post-mortem alcohol. Measuring the alcohol content in this fluid can therefore give the medical examiner a better idea of the pre-death alcohol level. And you've probably heard a couple doctors that looked over this autopsy that wonder why they didn't take any from the vitreous humor, because that would have gave them more of an accurate reading. But they didn't. They only took her spleen blood. Okay, so considerations. If the deceased person was involved in an accident or caused an event that injured or killed others, experts must take care to either confirm or rule out intoxication as a factor. Because alcohol production in the body after death is chemically the same as that from drinking, blood alcohol content alone cannot determine whether the person consumed alcohol before death. The alcohol level of the person's urine may not give an accurate before-death picture either. The vitreous humor sample usually proves more useful in estimating intoxication, but in the end, the medical examiner must take into account the body's weight, age, sex, fat content, time of death, and other factors. Okay, and there's many more articles you could find on this, but I just wanted to show you a couple. So I think that's, in my opinion, that's exactly what it was, because we see in the discovery that they interviewed her friends that were with her in Arizona, and they said she did not have any alcohol at dinner in Arizona before she got on the plane home, and sure she didn't have any alcohol on the flight home. We would be able to see receipts because she would have to charge them on the plane. Everything's by card, so she would have had to charge them on her card, so we would see a receipt in her bank statements. They would see, the investigators. I mean, when would she have drank? She didn't drink after she got home that night, because Chris would have said something, number one. Number two, there was no alcohol bottles or anything laying around in the house at all. So I think it's safe to say that it was just decomposition and fermentation. Okay, so now I'm going to play you the part of the warrant search that has this weird light thingy here. I'll show you. There's actually two parts, two spots here. Okay, so there's the first spot. Okay, so I'm going to play it again in slow motion, and then I just found something else too. So I have two more things to show you after I play this in slow motion. Okay, now watch that light right there. Moves and then it comes out. So it's hard to put the arrows as it's moving. I have it on really slow motion, but follow where you see that arrow. Now follow that light. What the heck is it? I mean, there's only two guys in there with flashlights. See, this guy doesn't have a flashlight. That light that we're seeing right now is from actually the guy's body cam that we're watching, his flashlight. This guy just has a camera, and then the other guy has a flashlight too. And there's one time that it kind of looks like that there's another one. It's because his one is reflecting off the mirror right here. But besides that, there's only two flashlights. But if you look at the light sources when that happens, it's not, I don't know where it's coming from, that little thing that's traveling. And that wasn't even the original thing I wanted to show you. I just saw that afterwards. Okay, I'll show you that little speck of light again and try to, it's hard to point because it's moving, so it's hard to point at it, but I'll try to do the arrow where to start looking and then try to follow it. Okay, I don't know. Could just be some kind of lights reflecting off of something, but it's just kind of neat. It looks like a little sparkle. But that's not what I was originally going to show you. What I was originally going to show you is coming up here in a minute. I showed you that first part on the wall. Now there's another, like, actually a little bit bigger part on a different wall. That's like the same thing. It's coming up here. I'll show you. Okay, I'll play that part one more time in slow motion. Okay, everybody, let me know what you guys think of that. I don't know. I mean, it could just be explained as the lights bouncing off of something, making that effect. But it's kind of neat, and it makes you wonder a little bit. Now that we know about that house and some of the paranormal stuff that people have experienced. All right, everybody have a good night and a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.